Welcome to the Inspiration and Innovation Hour, brought to you by Inspirational by Design. I'm your host, Shannon Scandoza. Thank you so much for joining me today. As a disclaimer, we are not being paid, nor are we paying others to promote products and services used in these segments. Each month, we'll highlight and discuss inspirational and innovative stories, people, and experiences within the field of healthcare. I'll bring on guest speakers to talk about their work, their impact in the field or community, and their personal journeys. Later, I'll host a DIY corner where I will demonstrate how to implement and utilize the newest educational technology learning modalities in your classroom, clinic, or lab space. So don't scroll past or hit the back button. We've got a great show for you with some incredible guest speakers and EdTech play you won't want to miss. Stay tuned after this commercial break.
Inspirational by Design and the Always in Motion Simulation Project believe that healthcare concerns are a universal challenge and affect us all, as a world, as a community, and on an individual level. We also believe that no two individuals are alike. Every person deserves tailored care and attention. We are dedicated to providing communicative spaces where everyone feels valued, heard, and respected, creating pathways so that everyone is treated with compassion and dignity while receiving exceptional care, and creating opportunities for patients and providers to build meaningful relationships and lasting trust. So let's get started today. Practice specialized cases embedded with cultural competencies, ethics, health equity, and value-based care. The virtual simulation experience is a 75-minute interactive and immersive experience designed to enhance and expand communication and feedback skills. For more information or to book your experience, contact us today. Let Inspirational by Design inspire you.
Welcome back. Today's inspirational topic is dedicated to intercultural communication, AI models for multilingual learners. And I'm so inspired by our special guests and their story. Please welcome Meghan Killeen. Meghan is a learning technologist who designs innovative language programs at the intersection of linguistics and emerging technology. Her work in AI literacy focuses on advancing more inclusive approaches to artificial intelligence by improving how systems support diverse learners and enable a more equitable, accessible communication across languages. We're so honored to have you here today, Meghan. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, your role, and how it intersects with the field of healthcare?
Thanks, Shannon, for having me on the show. I'm really excited to dive into this conversation. So, as you mentioned, I'm really focused on learning technology and how that can support language learning, but even more broadly, just communication as well. I'm thinking about how I've also used technology for my own communication. So, I have been working with multilingual learners for almost over 15 years now. And so I think I have a little bit of an interesting background that has set me up for really looking at learning technology and how AI can support language learning. So I have worked primarily for intensive English language programs for both private institutions and also universities. And I also have a background working in film and graphic design. So I believe that also has factored in to a lot of my research and focus into this area of how to make EdTech tools more inclusive and looking at how to support language learning by leveraging these tools. Um, and then I also have worked for language learning apps as well. So as a materials content writer, so producing content that really is focused on real world application and simulation. So creating those language learning opportunities through guided questions, but also creating certain environments that are conducive to that. So I believe having worked in ed tech, working in traditional learning environments, working with adult learners focused on language learning, all of this has come together and synthesized to my current role, in which I've been focused on how to support language learners and really having them tap into these tools and use them to help fully develop and expand their linguistic repertoire as well. And as it relates to healthcare, many of the students that I've worked with are going into the healthcare field. So, for example, most recently in my role as a curriculum and assessment specialist at the institution where I work at, we have a cohort of students from Oman and who are entering into the nursing program. So they would take foundational courses in English and then also take first year courses that would go towards their nursing degree. And it was really this opportunity of working with, especially this particular cohort of students, that raised my awareness just about how important it is for them to use these tools not just for translation, but also to give them a sense of autonomy.
I love that, and I completely agree. These tools create opportunities for learners to become more active participants in their own learning, especially when they're navigating new environments, unfamiliar systems, and different languages. In healthcare specifically, there is already an entirely separate language through medical terminology. For multilingual learners, that often means translating from their native language into English and then into medical terminology and finally into patient friendly language that people can easily understand. That process can involve multiple layers of communication and interpretation before they even arrive at the message that they're trying to convey. And we know that that has a significant challenge for many learners. It highlights how complex communication in healthcare truly is, especially for students balancing language, culture, and professional expectations all at once. So, with that in mind, can you share more about how you're utilizing these tools and technologies to create meaningful impact or drive change within your community?
Sure, and that's a really great point, Shan, too, about those multiple layers of communication. And I was thinking about that as well. How can we go beyond translation? And so when I was working, especially with this particular cohort of students who had entered the nursing program, I was thinking, well, how can I not only have them go beyond using these tools for translation, but I want to celebrate their first language. I want them to feel a sense of pride and also thinking about how can they learn communication beyond just I'm going from here is the language that I want as a target language, but fully communicate. And again, going back to that linguistic repertoire, because really thinking that now technology is creating this kind of digital translanguaging, almost like a third space at this point. And I really wanted to have students have a sense of autonomy as well in this. So when I was thinking about this, I developed an AI literacy course that originally was just to really highlight bias and hallucination in AI, especially as it relates to having students think about culturally what this means as well. And then it really expanded into the students using AI as a study support, but I wanted them to outline the parameters. I didn't want that to come top down. I didn't want to say, well, this is sort of what would support your learning journey. I wanted them to really reflect and think about what were their objectives. And some of the students really were accustomed to just using these tools, like generative AI, as a purely translation tool. And so that was part of this framework that I was developing. I wanted to first raise their awareness about the bias in AI and have conversations around it. And we had this great activity where students read an article about a university student who was accused of using AI for a research paper, and they debated it and they got into it and they talked about. So it was really fantastic to have that conversation, not just about bias, but specifically language bias, which I don't think gets highlighted as much. So we had this really rich conversation, and they were able to kind of expand on that a little bit. And then that sort of primed them to think about it for themselves. Well, how would you use AI, and how would you also talk about if, for example, you were in a similar situation? What would you do to kind of outline what you've done and how to show your voice as well? And so that was really a topic, was talking about voice And I really started the AI literacy course with that. Um, what is your voice? What does your voice sound like in your first language? And so, yes, you want to translate, but how do you maintain the richness of your persona through that? So it started out with bias, talking about that linguistic language bias, but then also just voice. And it was really wonderful because we brought in a professor who works with students in the writing center, and he came in and he talked about voice, and he said, yes, you can use generative AI to translate and make it grammatically a certain standard, but you're losing that personality. And I thought that was such a amazing moment to have a guest speaker, which I think was helpful to have someone come in from outside the classroom to talk about this and add that dimension. Um, and I think that really opened up students' minds because they thought there's this sense of like homogenized language that like English needs to be as a target language for them, it needs to be perfect, grammatically perfect. And I love that we had a conversation that it doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be authentic and real. And I think that I'm going back to what you're saying too about patient communication as well, and what you were pointing out, not just translating the medical terms, but how do you communicate that? How do you connect? How do you have that resonance between two individuals? And I really wanted to highlight that these tools can translate, but they can't communicate between two humans because it's not human. And so we had these really wonderful conversations, and then that segued into the students creating their own study tutors and thinking, again, what are your objectives? So what do you want help with? Who are you as a learner? How do you learn as well? And I think that was great because a lot of the students admitted, and we even had a survey too that captured this, captured their reflections, was they had been using tools purely for translation. So I think that just starting with the topic of bias in the AI literacy course that I created for especially this cohort of students in nursing cohort, they really start thinking about who they are and how that gets represented in their voice.
Oh, Megan, I love that so much. And I found myself agreeing with you the entire time. That's exactly what we emphasize as well. We don't want people to lose their voice to AI. Professionalism, grammar, and communication matter. And what makes communication meaningful is the person behind it. AI is becoming increasingly intuitive. It now asks about tone, cadence, audience, warmth, professionalism, and context. Those are valuable tools for enhancing communication, but they should support our voice, not replace it. Writing has always reflected who we are, our lived experiences, perspectives, and ways of thinking. When AI begins helping shape ideas and language, it can sometimes shift communication from being deeply personal to something more collective or generalized. That's where concerns around ethics and bias and authenticity become so important. I absolutely share your concern about ensuring these technologies are developed and used responsibly. We need ethical, bias aware, and decolonized approaches that AI can use to recognize when content no longer reflects the perspective of the person actually in the seat. In healthcare, especially, we cannot allow patients to lose their voice in the same way we don't want learners to lose theirs, right? Because if we aren't centering the lived experiences of the learner or the patient, then we risk creating systems that communicate for people instead of with them. So at the same time, I do see incredible value in AI supported learning tools. Specialized chatbots or small language models can create safe spaces for learners to practice communication, ask difficult questions, work through uncertainty, and build confidence before interacting with real people. These opportunities for rehearsal and reflection can strengthen communication skills and improve the human connection. But at the end of the day, AI is still not human. It can organize information, it can assist with translation, guide thought processes and support learning, but it cannot replace genuine human interaction, empathy, or connection. That's why maintaining authenticity and communication is so critical as we continue integrating these tools into education and healthcare. I'd love to hear more about your AI literacy innovation work and how you're implementing it within your courses and broader community initiatives.
Sure. So I think it's important, as you mentioned, thinking about these tools, right? These are tools that can enhance, um, and they can streamline our thoughts, and they can also serve as good study partners. And that was really what the aim was for the students to not only develop their linguistic proficiency, but their digital proficiency too. And so I was kind of building that out in tandem. But going back to also with voice, there was a lot of advocacy that came out of this as well, because when I was thinking about before we in the AI literacy course, before the students even got to the point of developing these bots to serve as a study tutor, I was starting to, I guess, audit kind of different tools to see what would be a good fit for the AI literacy course. And I didn't want to just use a traditional language learning app. There were some that I had considered, but I wanted really the student's voice. I think that always has been the theme is autonomy and self-reflection and really understanding their role in the digital, and I don't want to say digital age because that's very futuristic, but thinking of where their voice is in these technologies. And really that was the underscoring, that was really the underlying theme of this all. So when I started auditing different tools, I started having conversations with some of the ed tech tool representatives saying, well, can it do this? Can it go beyond translation? And I think there were two examples where I was really excited because I opened up the dialogue between the students and then also the representatives of these different ed tech tools. So, for example, there was one student who I brought in. He was actually a high school student who had developed an app that was really interesting, where it was an app that worked on the phone where you can take a picture of some printed text, and then it could actually create an interactive quiz to test comprehension based on the reading passage. Um, so I was very excited to support him as a student, a high school student who was developing this app. But it was a great opportunity because he was obviously very accessible. This was an app that he had created. And I thought, well, let me bring him in to have a conversation with the students in my class. And so they asked questions like, well, why isn't this available in this country? And he's like, oh, that's a good question. Or can you make it more multimodal because some of the instructions I can't understand in English? Or how can I change this into my first language? I can't readily see how to toggle between the languages. And that came from the students, right? That was unprompted from me. I didn't have that conversation. I just simply created a platform where I could facilitate this conversation. And similarly, I had a conversation with another platform that I had the students practice on. So it was where you could upload also information. I created in a very meta way an AI literacy course on this platform, which was multimodal and it had an avatar as well. But when the students had the avatar talk to them, it was very overwhelming because it was just a wall of text, or when the avatar was speaking, they couldn't quite understand it. They didn't know how to adjust it for their language proficiency. And I thought, well, this is really valuable because obviously I know that it's not meant to be a language learning platform, but I wanted students to still have that experience of that particular platform where they could interact with the avatar and the video because I thought it was a really dynamic platform, but yet there are these limitations in terms of language. And when I spoke to the representative of this tool and I said, well, this would be for multilingual learners. And they said, oh, well, we can translate. And I said, well, I want it to be a little more dynamic than that because I don't think that the students would naturally gravitate towards that just specifically if they could translate. So we had this conversation, and what came out of it was essentially this amazing case study that the particular learning platform highlighted on their website because they changed some of their features as well so that it would be more inclusive and that it was thinking more about what is a prompt that we can put in that kind of grades the language that the avatar is using and communicating, meaning that it understands to kind of limit the amount of text that it was using and kind of doing comprehension checks. And also, can it prompt the individual, like what language you like to use? And so I think refining that through our conversation. So there was that advocacy that came out of it. So I created these different pathways. There was a pathway where the students could directly communicate with a developer, but then also I was communicating on behalf of the students, but based on their feedback. So I was representing the students, asking those targeted questions so that they could give that feedback. And then in turn, that resulted in that platform being more inclusive, heightening their awareness as developers as well. So.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for providing that information. Now let's head on over to the Innovation Center and take a look at Megan's demo.
So based on my experience supporting multilingual learners navigate different communication needs, I developed an inclusive design framework. But before I introduce the framework, I just want to briefly ground it in this concept of digital translanguaging. We often think about how people move fluidly across languages and cultural contexts in their communication, drawing everything in their repertoire, their first language, their lived experience, their cultural knowledge. And so linguists usually refer to this as translanguaging, but in an AI-mediated environment is referred to as digital translanguaging. So I want to first introduce how digital translanguaging shows up in an AI-mediated kind of environment. So one aspect of translanguaging in general, but specifically digital translanguaging, is that people move between languages online to express ideas more clearly, again, expanding that full linguistic repertoire. But they also mix modes. So in addition to moving between languages, they might also incorporate emojis, images, or an audio or video to more fully communicate. Also, using multiple language is also very rooted in conveying identity. And then also moving across different languages. So this could be either just in general communicating or using apps such as Google Translate or Grammarly. Moving between these different kinds of apps or spaces or tools or AI can also, by pulling in those supports, it can help them understand information and solve problems. So thinking about digital translanguaging and how, again, just as I mentioned before, AI can kind of serve as an intermediary, or tech serves as an intermediary to really help individuals make full use of their repertoire. And similarly, we should be creating inclusive environments to support this. So I really envision this framework as a kind of sequence. So the first stage being that you assess the full range of communication needs that are present in these digital spaces. So asking who are the learners or patients, what languages, cultural backgrounds, and communication styles are represented. So that way you can also determine what sort of gaps or disconnects there are. And then kind of moving into the next stage, thinking about how you can position AI or other digital tools as resources within a broader communication ecosystem. So it's not the primary voice. So you can design digital environments that thoughtfully invite first language use, cultural context, lived experience. So not that it's just simply translating. And then kind of moving into this third stage, really illuminating AI's role in the communication by seeing how the very tool or platform itself is shaping the exchange. Does AI amplify opportunities for communication? So for example, I had an activity where students used an AI platform where they could learn about the different grammatical rules of the languages represented in their class. That's something I wouldn't have been able to facilitate as an educator since I didn't speak all the languages represented in the course. But also thinking in reflection, what does that tool maybe miss? Does it have bias manifest in it? And then kind of moving into this next stage, which is uncovering the AI tools and environments that you're using to build these spaces by really asking whose linguistic and cultural norms do these tools reflect? So run essentially an audit, not only just for, of course, accuracy of these tools, but how these tools represent diverse users. I found myself as I was auditing tools for the students to use to build bots or to use even just for learning in general. Sometimes the actual interface didn't support individuals who are multilingual. Instead, it was very idiomatic, so students couldn't catch a lot of the information. And then lastly, just evaluating if the space or scenarios support just simply task completion and language accuracy, or if it really promotes true cultural exchange. And again, AI should truly be a bridge and not a substitute for meaningful communicative.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I keep hearing the same message from educators across many schools and disciplines. Students consistently feel that educational technology companies are not fully meeting their needs. Honestly, I understand that perspective deeply, and it's one of the reasons I built my company. I created a kind of learning environment and tools that I wish I'd had as a learner myself. I also struggled navigating education years ago, and even then, technology looked completely different. I still remember taking my first online course around 2000, where a classroom lecture was essentially broadcast through public access television. If you wanted to participate, you literally had to call in by phone like an old talk show. At the time, it felt incredibly innovative because it allowed people to learn remotely across long distances. But looking back at it now, it's remarkable how quickly technology has evolved. Today, we can instantly connect with people around the world, collaborate in real time, and create shared learning spaces that would have seemed impossible 20 years ago. But at the same time, accessibility and inclusion still remain major challenges. As educators, developers, and educational technology companies, we're all trying to figure out how to make learning more accessible for multilingual learners and more reflective of the diverse communities that we serve. And that goes far beyond translation alone. It includes culture, customs, lived experiences, communication styles, and ways of understanding the world. Language itself is deeply connected to culture. Some words, concepts, and experiences do not directly translate across languages because they carry cultural meaning that cannot easily be reduced into another system. That means learning is not just about converting words from one language into another, it's about understanding perspective, context, and experience. Because of that, many of the ways we currently assess learners may not always be equitable or reflective of their actual skills, knowledge, or abilities. And that's why conversations around inclusive design, authentic assessment, and culturally responsive educational technology is so important. We're still learning how to build tools that are truly incorporate learners' voices while determining how to assess growth fairly across different backgrounds and experiences. Standardization alone cannot fully capture the richness and diversity of how people learn. I'm incredibly excited about the work you're doing with AI literacy because I truly believe these kinds of courses are becoming essential. Every educational space includes multilingual learners, and too often they begin at a disadvantage simply because they are navigating multiple languages, cultures, and systems simultaneously. Honestly, I can't even imagine what it would be like to attend college in another country, learning another language, and then become professionally trained within that system. That takes tremendous resilience, adaptability, and strength. And I have immense respect for anyone who undertakes that journey. Thank you so much again for sharing your experiences and insights today. Before we close, is there a final message or key takeaway that you would like to leave with our audience?
I think you're right. I mean, I just am in absolute awe of my students and looking at just all that they achieve and thinking about how kind of going back to sort of the impetus for this AI literacy course too, because you talked about the struggles, right? And that was something initially I saw the students that I was working with using AI to translate because they were struggling. And the stakes were high, right? They're in these university courses. It's already challenging enough. I mean, and then you compound that with learning this content in a second language. Um, so I understood the inclination or the tendency to maybe use these tools to kind of level the playing field for them, right? At that point. And it was unfortunate because sometimes you would see, well, they shouldn't be using this for translation. But when you look at how they were perceiving it, they're perceiving it as being at a disadvantage. And I wanted to change the script on that. So that's why I went from the students using these tools because they felt like they were at a disadvantage with their courses to no, you're in the driving seat of this. You have the autonomy to use this as a tool that really supports you. So you're learning how to communicate. So thinking about that, giving the students that sort of empowerment, but then also making sure their voices were represented with these tools. And so the message really for me is I want people to really think about how these tools work too. Because when you think about the technology like natural language processing, it's working on an algorithm, right? It's calculating what's going to be next. So that's why it works well with grammar. But I shouldn't say kind of, it does reinforce language ideology. It homogenizes language. It doesn't capture that nuance of two individuals communicating. And so I want people to really think about the training of these tools. And when you think about they're being trained on large data sets, there's a lot of language. When you think about what's published, it's largely in English. So that is reinforcing this kind of homogenized kind of language ideology. And I was reading an article recently. It was a published research paper on capitalism and language and in learning technology and how this that's the main machine behind this. And that's so when I was reading through this research article, it had a study where they brought in a group of individuals who spoke Turkish as their first language, and they were interacting with Siri, and they were trying to interact with it. They couldn't interact with it in Turkish at that time because that wasn't available to them. But when they were trying to, it would understand Turkish, but it couldn't do the output in Turkish. Um, they felt like it wasn't natural and their inclination was to use English anyway because they felt the perception was that even if these tools can communicate in a language other than English, it didn't feel natural to them. And I think one of the words that they used in the article was it felt perverted, like it was this sort of almost like a botched version of their first language, this distorted version of their language. So I think that's important to kind of put to out there as a message to raise that awareness. Think about that. And how can we do better? How can we really capture the nuance of communication. Um, that's a main message, raising that awareness, really, to think about it. And what is language? Really getting into it. And I know that's really important, especially for what you do, Shen, too, about for simulation. Is it communicating figures and data, or what happens? Where's the warmth? Where is the richness? Thinking about translanguaging, sometimes a person might communicate in one language and can quickly, turn to another language. So it's not just homogenized, just not communicating in one language. You might communicate in multiple languages throughout the day. You might write in English, but you might communicate in your first language with your family. Thinking about domains as well. Thinking about environments, and I know that's also within your wheelhouse, like environments. And that was something where I also was trying to create environments for students to practice language and learn about each other's language too, because that was another dimension of the AI literacy course. I had the students use AI to not only practice their English, but they could learn from each other. So I had students who were speaking Portuguese and Arabic, and they got to learn, oh, well, let's learn vocabulary related to sports, but now I'm learning what that word is in Portuguese, and you get to learn what that word is in Arabic. And we understand, now we can have this great conversation culturally about sports. So I also wanted to facilitate that as well.
Oh, wow. That is truly and incredibly so empowering because at the heart of this work, that's really what we're trying to do empower people within their own spaces and experiences. We want learners to feel equipped, supported, and capable of succeeding without feeling marginalized or disconnected in environments where they were not originally designed with them in mind. The reality is that when only one perspective is shaping technology, educational systems, or communication tools, bias will always exist. That's why representation and collaboration matter so deeply. Throughout history, humanity has continuously searched for better ways to connect and communicate across cultures, languages, and experiences. But communication is never a one size fits all. Even within the US, communication styles, dialects, and cultural norms can vary dramatically by region. Expanding that globally only highlights how important it is to recognize nuance, identity, and autonomy in language and communication. That's why everyone needs a seat at the table when these tools are being built. If diverse voices are not actively involved in creating educational technologies and AI systems, then we are often left trying to correct or retrofit systems that were never fully designed for everyone in the first place. We also navigate this constantly through code switching. People switch language, tone, and communication styles depending on their environment, audience, and level of formality. This happens professionally, personally, culturally, and linguistically. Communication involves far more than words alone. It includes nuance, context, emotion, personality, and shared understanding. When people from many different cultures and backgrounds are all trying to communicate within the same space, those layers become even more important. I truly believe that if we began empowering learners while they are still in school, giving them the tools, support, practice, and safe spaces to build confidence, then we help them prepare for success long before they enter those professional environments. Then they're not navigating these systems alone for the first time. They become empowered not only to advocate for themselves, but also to support the people who come after them. That's why the work you're doing, Meghan, matters so much. Our multilingual learners and international students are often carrying enormous cognitive and emotional loads. They're translating language, culture, professional expectations, and technology simultaneously. Even as a native English speaker, navigating academic and technical spaces can be difficult. So I cannot even imagine the complexity of doing that in multiple languages while also training in high stakes profession like healthcare. Because of that, I believe it is our responsibility as educators and innovators to provide as much support, accessibility, and opportunity as possible. wonderful. I would love for our audience to learn more about your work and how they can connect with you. What's the best way for people to reach out and learn more about what you're building?
Yeah, so thanks again for that, Shannon. And I really appreciate what you're saying too about giving back. That is something I wanted to mention that the students who took the AI literacy course, a few of them who built out the bot to teach healthcare terminology, which they developed, they were able to then do a demo to the other students in their cohort who hadn't taken the course. So very happy to have them support each other. I love this idea of peer support. Um, and in terms of connecting with me, of course, my website or email as well. And then, of course, LinkedIn, where I'm always talking about different conferences that I'm attending or talks like this.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. I truly encourage everyone listening to connect with her and explore her work further. She facilitates and moderates many incredible courses, webinars, and discussions that highlight emerging innovations, new technologies, and important conversations happening in this space. So please be sure to check out her website, connect through email, and learn more about the work she's doing. And finally, I promise this is my last question before I let you go. You've been such a wonderful guest, and honestly, I feel like we can continue this conversation all day. Before we close, I'd love to ask, who inspires you and why?
For me, it's largely my students. I mean, it's to see how much they have accomplished. And there's one student in particular. This was when I first started teaching. Her name is Samir. She's become a very dear friend. She's from Iran. She came to the US, I'd say well over 10 years ago. She already had her bachelor's at that point. She wanted to become a pharmacist. And I got to just be a part of that journey. So initially, she connected with me because she needed extra help. She needed a tutor. Um, and I went from witnessing that to her now working for Mount Sinai. She has two master's degrees now. And she just doesn't stop learning. She was enrolled, she recently became enrolled at Harvard as well because she wants to go for her PhD. And for her, she wants to make a change in policy. So that's what she's focused on right now because she was very perplexed about the system with, and she had lots of questions about insurance and she felt like navigating that system and she had a unique perspective as well, thinking, well, why is the system this way? And how can we improve the system? And that for me is so heartwarming because she didn't, going back to that theme of voice, she has a voice and she wants to make that impact. And to have witnessed that both as a tutor, a teacher, but we became friends too. And I've just been so impressed with her commitment and dedication to healthcare and the way she has constantly pushed herself, even when there were personal challenges, um, and just that level of commitment. So there are days where I think, oh, um, maybe I'm a little tired, or I could put that off. I think, no, keep learning, and that's really what has inspired me. That regardless of any kind of challenge, just the importance of education and not and her not being deterred because sometimes I'll see that with students where they'll say I have all these goals but my level of English doesn't match what my goals are and sometimes they can be deterred by that or they'll think oh I don't have this certain level of proficiency and then there's this kind of sense of self-worth that gets entangled in that, and that might prevent them or sort of give them pause for pursuing their dreams. And that is always so heartbreaking for me because I want them to know your level of English is far more than most people's ability to speak in another language outside of English. Like, I want people to learn from your culture. I want that, and you are bringing so much to the conversation, and don't minimize that because of what you are bringing. And so to see my friend Samira overcome that and see all that she has achieved, and so she, of course, has become a pharmacist, but has gone above and beyond and continues learning. So that is so inspirational for me.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And honestly, I'm trying to hold back tears because I relate to it so deeply. When you spend years in education working alongside brilliant, creative, and hopeful students, you become deeply invested in their success. You never want to let them down. Even now, I still receive texts and emails from former students telling me they've encountered a situation in real life that reminded them of a simulation that we did years ago. Those moments are incredibly meaningful because they show the experience stayed with them. It helps strengthen their recall, confidence, instincts, and ability to respond in high pressure situations. That's the power of meaningful education and simulation. It creates experiences that learners carry with them long after the classroom. And the challenges many learners face are very real. Navigating a new language, culture, healthcare system, and educational environment all at once requires enormous courage and resilience. Anyone who commits themselves to that journey is deeply inspiring to me. People do not enter education for wealth or recognition. We do it because we genuinely care about people and believe in their potential. At the core of this work is empowerment, helping others succeed and ultimately improving outcomes for human beings. That's why this conversation around AI, translation, and communication is so important. You've helped highlight not only the opportunities these tools create, but also the limitations and ethical considerations we still need to address. AI can assist with organization, translation, and scenario development, but it cannot fully capture the lived experience or authentic voice of a person. Whether it's a patient navigating cancer treatment, chronic pain, trauma, or another deeply personal healthcare journey, those experiences cannot simply be reduced to algorithmic outputs. In healthcare, especially, communication already carries immense complexity. When providers and patients come from different linguistic, cultural, and social backgrounds, those challenges become even greater. That's why preserving authentic human voices and building more inclusive, culturally responsive tools matters so much. Everything we do to better support learners, educators, patients, and providers ultimately strengthens the care and connection we all depend on. So again, Meghan, thank you so much for being here today, for sharing your expertise, and for opening our eyes to these important conversations. We truly appreciate the work you're doing, and we will absolutely be following your continued impact in this space. You are truly our inspiration of the month. Please be sure to check out Meghan's website or contact her using the information on the screen to learn more about her work. Up next, we have a very special announcement you won't want to miss. Stay tuned after this commercial break.
This is so exciting! I can't believe it! Inspirational by Design and Breakaway Games are creating virtual escape room courses. It's so amazing. Check it out. These escape room courses are so fun. You can actually bring interactive and immersive experiences virtually to your classroom, clinic, or lab space. They have customizable content, games, and videos to make the experience even more meaningful. Check out what else can be added in for the best in your students' learning outcomes. Oh wow, this is so awesome. They can embed AI chat features for more intuitive, personal, and growth-oriented objectives. Seriously, students love this. Video game simulators give students the opportunity to practice skills and reasoning in a way no one else is. This education technology component is fantastic. They can diagnose patients in a clinically simulated environment with AI avatar patients performing customizable scenarios. No way! They can practice skills, competencies, and clinical reasoning with actual video games. That's amazing! Wow, now this is really great. They can build customized web app simulators to practice mastery knowledge and still have a great time. What else can we do? I'm getting chills. Did I see a live patient communication session right there? Yes, indeed! They can even embed scenarios that employ a live virtual simulated patient. That's crazy. And what's more, they give actual feedback to my students after completing the scenario. Now this is what education is all about. Wow, that's just amazing. There are so many awesome ways to deliver learning nowadays. Check out the virtual escape room courses and so much more at Inspirational by Design's website today. Your students will thank you for it.
Welcome back to the Inspiration and Innovation Hour, brought to you by Inspirational by Design. I'm your host, Shannon Scandoza, and thank you for joining us again today. Today, we are honored to introduce a very special scholarship created in loving memory of my beautiful niece, Kaylynn Hayes-Williams. The Kaylynn Hayes-Williams Scholarship was established to celebrate her life, spirit, and enduring legacy, a bright light whose kindness, strength, and love touched so many. Through this scholarship, we hope to empower students as they explore their future, pursue higher education, and grow in their chosen fields of study. Each year, one deserving student will receive up to $1,000 in support, helping carry Kaylynn's legacy forward through opportunity, purpose, and community. At this time, I'd like to warmly welcome our special guest, Kaylynn's mother, Christina Hayes. Thank you so much for joining us today, Christina. We are so honored to have you here today. When you think about Kaylynn, what are the qualities or moments that immediately come to mind that you hope others will remember about her?
I would say that Kaylynn's main focus is to ensure that everyone that she encountered felt seen, heard, and loved. That she welcomed everyone with open arms, and even if you weren't part of the family, you became part of the family, and you knew exactly where you stood with her, and you never had a second guess.
No, you didn't. You always knew where you stood with her. She was the most beautiful, kind, and kindred spirit for me as well. And she always had the energy and authenticity to get up and make every day her day and make everybody around her shine. Thinking about that, what dreams, passions, or goals did Kaylynn have for her future? And how do you see the scholarship continuing that spirit in other students?
I would say that she made sure that you knew that you were important, even though you didn't feel like it. If there was light in her day, and she made sure that she brought it into your day, and that way everybody's light just shines bright together.
She truly embodied what it means to empower others. She never made anyone feel small or insignificant. Instead, she had a gift for making people feel valued and seen and important. She worked hard to lift others up, always making sure the little guy felt bigger or like the biggest person in the room, and ensuring that everyone felt special. You know, losing someone so deeply loved changes a family forever. What does it mean to create something lasting in Kaylynn's honor through this scholarship fund?
That would mean that part of her still lives on. Part of her light is still shining, which means part of your light is going to shine even brighter with hers.
Oh, I love that so much. And you know, I'm hugging and holding you as we're talking. If a future scholarship recipient could hear one message from Kaylynn's story or legacy, what would you hope they carry with them as they pursue their education and purpose?
Hold on to the people that you love, but hold on even tighter to the people who make you feel loved.
Yes, as always, she embodied purpose, direction, and the deep love of those around her. She was truly the brightest light amongst us, someone who naturally drew in joy, warmth, and energy. I had never seen a happier soul, happier baby, someone who's so fiercely devoted to her friends and family, always ready to protect them and stand by the people that she loved. What stood out most to me was her resilience. She faced struggles head on, navigated life's challenges with strength, and continued to rise above them. That spirit of perseverance and love is what she exemplified, and it's the same spirit I hope to see carried forward in others. What would you want people who had never had the chance to meet Kaylin to understand about who she truly was?
I would say definitely dream. Definitely go for your dreams. Live in the moment, embrace the moment, embrace the people that are around you, and make sure that you not only see that part of you enjoying the day, but bringing joy to others. Um, when you saw her glowing, the whole room lit up. It amplified. It was actually more magical than most would think.
Thank you so much, Christina, for being here today and sharing Kaylin's story with us. We are deeply grateful for your time and honored to celebrate her legacy through the Kaylynn Hayes-Williams Scholarship Fund. Kaylin was truly a gift to all of us, and we hope to carry her light forward through the lives the scholarship will touch. Eligibility requirements and application details will be available at the end of the summer, so please stay tuned for more information. Up next, DIY Corner. You won't want to miss it. Stay tuned after this commercial break.
Inspirational by Design and the Always in Motion Simulation Project believe that healthcare concerns are a universal challenge and affect us all, as a world, as a community, and on an individual level. We also believe that no two individuals are alike. Every person deserves tailored care and attention. We are dedicated to providing communicative spaces where everyone feels valued, heard, and respected, creating pathways so that everyone is treated with compassion and dignity while receiving exceptional care, and creating opportunities for patients and providers to build meaningful relationships and lasting trust. So let's get started today. Practice specialized cases embedded with cultural competencies, ethics, health equity, and value-based care. The virtual simulation experience is a 75-minute interactive and immersive experience designed to enhance and expand communication and feedback skills. For more information or to book your experience, contact us today. Let Inspirational by Design inspire you.
And welcome back to the Inspiration and Innovation Hour, brought to you by Inspirational by Design. I'm your host again, Shannon Scandoza. Thank you so much for tuning in. To prepare for this segment and play along using the latest education technology, please scan the QR code for the AIM EdTech Lab. As a reminder, we are not being paid, nor are we paying others to promote products and services used in these segments. Thank you for joining me today in EdTech DIY Corner. Once you've opened the AIM EdTech Lab, click on Healthcare Faculty or Simulation Educator, and then navigate to the DIY Corner. Scroll down to find Anthropic's Claude. We will be using this AI model for coding today. Just a reminder, I do have a paid subscription and use the Opus 4.8 model for this demonstration today. So if you are using the free model, you may be limited on what you can do. Today's innovation topic in EdTech is related to intercultural communication. Our objective today is for you to learn how to create a multilingual medical terminology module for practicing terms in various languages and learning styles. And at the end of this segment, you will be able to do just that.
I wanted to build something that would demonstrate the importance of individuality and cultural humility from the lens of the learner. So, I went into Claude and entered the following prompt. I would like to create a multilingual module for practicing medical terminology in different languages. I would like this module to be made available in any language and translated by the learner's unique learning style. What came next was brilliant. It asked to clarify by asking for additional information so that it could make it as inclusive and adaptive as possible. Because I wanted to be able to do this on or offline, I chose the option hybrid, preloaded core plus AI for extras. I then went on to select all learning styles with corresponding adaptations and each of the different formats so that my learners can have as many options to learn as possible. Now I wait to see what it creates. Awesome! I now have a fully built module with an offline preset bank and an online AI agent translator capability, so that my learners can practice medical terminology in multiple languages and learning styles. This is incredible. Let's see what it can do. I can download the app to my desktop or phone, or I can publish it as an artifact for public use. I scroll over each section to see the options available: term set, language, and learning style. Once I choose which options I want, it takes me to the beginning screen. Here we have match and drag. The left side displays the English translation, and the right side displays your chosen language to translate to. Click on the matching words. If there is a word you want to add to the list, simply do so at the bottom of the screen. We can also play with flashcards by clicking on the tab at the top. View in English and then in the chosen or desired language. Simple as that. Next, I want to be able to write it out, so I choose the Typed Recall tab. And check my answers to be sure I am using or writing the terms correctly. I see here that I am not using the correct accent, so I change my answer to reflect it. And now, success! Now I'm going to head on over to multiple choice. I love that it carries over the visuals for the terms as well. That makes it easier and more accessible to all learning styles. That was fun, but I may be seeing a patient tomorrow that speaks another language, and I want to practice for that. I can easily click on New Session in the upper right-hand corner and select all my options again. And just like that, I am transported to another language. Again, I can practice through each tab at the top. But say I want to practice with a language that is not available in my drop-down box. I can click on Other and type the language that I want in the search bar. And just like that, the AI agent translator pulls that information directly into the module. This module even has built-in accessibility for our Audible learners. And there we have it. A simple prompt helped build an amazing tool that will help my learners connect with their patients in any language. For a better perspective for the learner, be sure to design this module with their language at the center.
As we come to the close of today's show, I just want to take a moment to reflect on how powerful this conversation has truly been. Today reminded us that innovation is not only about technology, it's about people. It's about creating spaces where learners feel seen, heard, supported, and empowered to succeed exactly as they are, while still honoring the cultures, language, and lived experiences that shape who they are. We've explored incredible potential of AI and educational technology to support multilingual learners in healthcare, but we also recognize something just as important. No tool should ever replace the authenticity of the human voice. Technology should strengthen communication, not erase identity. It should create bridges, not barriers. We also had the privilege of honoring the beautiful legacy of Kaylynn Hayes-Williams, a light whose love and kindness and strength continues to inspire all of us. Through her scholarship, that light will keep reaching others, opening doors and creating hope for students pursuing their own dreams. And in our DIY corner, we saw how innovation can become practical, accessible, and meaningful when it is built with real people in mind. Thank you so much for spending this time with us today. Thank you for caring about the future of education, communication, and human connection. Until next time, keep inspiring, keep innovating, and never forget that your voice, your story, and your impact matter more than you know. Have an inspirational day. Do you have an inspirational story or innovation in healthcare that you would like to share? If so, go to our website under Web Series and Podcast tab and click on the link to fill out the form.